Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to Tuesday night, June 23rd, board meeting. I'd like to call a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters regarding lease concerns and related to appointments of assistant principals. Motion moved by Diane, seconded by Anne Marie. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Karen, we're now in executive session.
Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting back to order and ask all those willing and able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to start off the meeting with a celebration. I would like to recognize our Board of Education student representatives, and I'd like to welcome them with a proclamation. And these will be sent to Irene Fang and Sarah Walgast. Sarah Walgast will be joining us next year as a senior, and Irene will be off to college in the fall. So the recognition from the Board of Education.
Jennifer.
Yeah.
Just real quick, it's Sarah Warren.
I'm sorry, Sarah Warren.
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize, Sarah. Sarah Warren. So the recognition goes as followed. Whereas Irene Fang, as a Rush-Henrietta student, has balanced her academic success with her personal growth and development. And whereas Irene Fang has served as a student liaison to the Board of Education and represented the interest and concerns of the Rush-Henrietta students. Now, therefore, it will be resolved that the Board of Education of Rush-Henrietta Central School District does hereby express to Irene Fang its sincere and profound admiration for her service in the board during the 2019-2020 academic school year. The board honors her academic achievement, leadership, and service to the district, her maturity, her pursuit of excellence, and her love of learning. So congratulations to Irene. This will be mailed off to you. And also Sarah Warren, you'll have one sent to you. So congratulations and thank you. Next up is public forum. And in pursuant to Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 202.1, there will be no in-person or regular attendance meeting at any Rush-Henrietta Board of Education until further notice. To address the board regarding public forum or items not on the agenda or items on the agenda, please submit your statements and questions to kflanagan@rhnet.org prior to the meeting. And Ms. Flanagan, there was nothing received, correct?
There were no statements or questions received. That is correct.
Okay. Next is public hearing on school safety against violence in education, the SAFE Act. The SAVE Act. And in pursuant to Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 202.1, there will be no in-person attendance at any regular or special meeting of Rush-Henrietta Board of Education until further notice. To address the board regarding changes to the SAVE documents, please submit statements or questions to Karen Flanagan prior to the meeting. And again, there
were no statements or questions received.
Thank you. Safe School Act Against Violence. Chris, would you like to talk about this?
Well, I do the annual is the attendance policy, the code of conduct, and the district safety plan. So you had the changes, they're a little bit lower this year. Since last 5 years, we've kind of got it down, and Nerlon did it the first 5 years before that, but there's not a lot of changes. So that, I don't know if you have any questions about the attendance policy. It was just a coding that you can see on there. And typically Karen Milburn's office gives me that information, and I make those changes. That would be the change for this year. The rest of the policy would remain the same. Good. Okay. The second one that I have in front of me is the code of conduct. The changes. And I know you've seen it. Does anybody have any questions on the changes? I will say that probably in January of 2021, maybe sooner, there'll be a stakeholders group convened to take a look at the whole code and how it would pertain to restorative practices and those things as the district moves forward. So that'll be coming in the near future with that.
And looking at it from an equity lens as well.
Yeah. So we're getting ready for that. So that'll be good. That'll be a great thing for a stakeholders group. So I'm excited about that for the district. And the third document would be the district safety plan, district-wide safety plan. Are any questions about that?
No.
Okay. All good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to say one thing. I want to thank the district and the board. My role has been abolished as the student director of student management, but I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve in that role. I really enjoy the job and I learned a lot. Nerlana and I talked today in my evaluation about what I'll take into the building after 5 years. So I've learned a lot that'll help the building out and the students and families and staff. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Okay, next up is consent items. These are items of a routine matter. May I have a motion pertaining to the approval of the consent items number 9A through 9I. Moved by James, seconded by Doug. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent items are passed.
Excuse me. Who seconded that motion?
Doug.
Doug is actually attending as a guest until the start of the next term.
Okay. Oh, all right. I'm sorry. So, seconded by Diane. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. That is now passed. Going to the personnel actions. I'm looking for a motion pertaining to the approval of personnel actions. Moved by Anne Marie, seconded by May. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Next is a motion pertaining to the approval of an MOA with the Administrative Association of Rush-Henrietta. Moved by Diane, seconded by James. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Great. Next is item B. It's motion pertaining to the approval of an MOA with the RHEA facilities and mechanics chapter. Moved by Anne Marie, seconded by James. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, item C is a motion pertaining to the approval of the MOA with the RHEA Coalition Unit of Administrative Support Professional Chapter. Moved by Diane, seconded by James. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the fund balance. Andy, is there any questions you want to entertain?
And just to give you a rough idea, the fund balance is just an estimate. As you know, when we put the budget together, we're putting it together starting over a year ahead of some of the spending. So at year end, there typically is some sort of fund balance left. As the board has historically budgeted conservatively to ensure we don't have mid-year cuts to student programs. And so that means there's a bit of money left at year end. Over the last few years, that amount has gone down somewhat from what it used to be as budgets have got tighter. but this year we're looking at about $3 million in estimated fund balance. When we're done closing the books at the end of July, we'll have a final number that'll be different than this, but this is a ballpark. So this is getting the board's direction on how to disposition it. What drove the fund balance on the revenue side? There was a couple things. The main thing was increase in pilots over our estimates, and really that's driven by the shelter rent that we get from a lot of the student housing projects. That nobody knows what that amount is up front. We get a % of their net rent that is self-reported after the fact, so it's hard to estimate that. So that drove some good news there. And our sales tax is a little bit over budget. The first 3 quarters of the year, we were trending significantly higher from the prior year. In quarter 4, that fell off the cliff, but for the year, we're ending up a bit favorable. And on the expense side, as you can imagine, due to the shutdown, our bus fuel and our utilities were significantly below budget. We had some favorability in health insurance and our special ed placements. So that gives us $3 million. And what this requests the board to do is, how do we disposition that? So when we finally close the books in July, where would we like it? So we recommended a number of reserves that it goes to. First one is the unemployment reserve. We only budget $15,000 a year for an unemployment insurance. That's typically, we have minimal spending there. But as you know, with this economy, that will definitely spike up. Last month alone, we had $47,000 in claims. So this will beef up that reserve so we can cover those expenses, as well as putting them into the retirement reserve and TRS retirement reserve. Those are funds that between the two, we spend over $6 million a year. So we need access to the money. It can be pulled out and used for that. And then the final little bit we propose is going into the bus reserve and capital reserve, because there again, next year, if we don't get the state aid funding that we're budgeted for and we have to cut, we could cut our transfer to the bus and our transfer to capital, and this was sort of pre-funds that, so it would free up money. So those are the recommended dispositions. So any questions on fund balance and the recommended disposition?
No.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no questions.
May I ask a question first, Andy? The resolution that you proposed and the cleanup clause at the end, if there's more money or less money.
Yes.
Should we indicate that the transfers to the bus reserve and the capital reserve be pro rata? Because is that what your intent is? Like it'd be 30-70 kind of thing?
Not necessarily, because we will hit a ceiling on the capital reserve. So it won't necessarily be pro rata, but between the two, we would have enough to absorb it. So if we get more fund balance, we might have to do more to the bus reserve, because we'll hit our reserve limit. Even though there's not $15 million in that reserve, we've taken money out of it. So over the life of the capital reserve, we'll hit the $15 million pretty quickly. And so we might do more or less out of the bus reserve. We have lots of space under the bus reserve.
Right, so why don't we add in the discretion of the superintendent at the end of that, so that there's no question about the authority to adjust those numbers.
That would work.
Okay. Karen, did you get that?
I did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion pertaining to the acceptance of the fund balance reserve funding plan year end 2019-2020 report? Moved by Diane, seconded by Anne Marie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is our superintendent's report.
Okay, thanks everybody. There were 3 items that were submitted as written reports. The first being the live streaming report. So we did include usage data in that memo that was sent to the board. If you remember, we said that we would revisit the pilot at the end of the year. This is our last meeting before the end of the school year, so I really just need direction from you as to whether or not we should set aside resources to continue live streaming for the upcoming school year. We, at this point, given the situation that we're in with the pandemic, we are going to continue live streaming through the summer with the hopes that we would be able to begin meeting in person again in the fall. So I just need to get a sense from the board if we should set aside those resources so that in the fall, assuming we're meeting in person again, that meetings would continue to be live streamed.
I think it's important that we continue with the live streaming so everyone can see what we're doing and to look as transparent as possible, and just give everyone the opportunity who cannot make it. I think that would be a good use of resources.
What do we anticipate the cost is going to be?
Yeah.
If my memory serves me correctly, I believe the initial cost was around $9,000 all in. But there were some initial costs that we had to pay for up front in terms of equipment and things like that we wouldn't have to pay for now. I believe most of the expenses that we incurred this year were covered through a grant that was given to us by Harry Bronson. So I anticipate using rough numbers that we would probably be talking somewhere in the range of say 6,000 or so that it would cost to live stream over the course of the year, give or take.
It's mostly personnel costs at this point, just somebody to run the equipment. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm interested in more accessibility and transparency rather than less, so I'm in favor.
Okay, if everyone is in agreement with that, then we will plan to continue live streaming once we begin meeting in person again. All right. The next item was a report on grants, pilots, and research projects. This is our annual report. Are there any questions or comments related to that item?
No.
Okay. And then our last written item was an update on the Marketplace Mall pilot. As you saw in the memo, the assessed value for Marketplace Mall was again lowered. This is something that we have discussed over the course of the year and prepared for in terms of our budget planning. The result of the lowered assessment is going to be approximately $338,000 in lost revenue. So again, we anticipated this, and we are in agreement with the town's assessment. And we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the situation. But like I said, this is something that we've discussed, and we did plan for this in terms of our preparation. Andy, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, you're exactly right. The value of the mall has been going down the last few years, so the board has indicated a willingness to reduce the pilot in conjunction with the assessment. And what's unique is that the U of R piece is technically it hasn't sold yet, but apparently there's still a commitment to buy it, and so it is going on the tax rolls for 1 year, possibly 2 years, until the construction begins and it technically becomes exempt again due to its use. But that piece is outside of the pilot, so that will help reduce our tax rate this year. So we're anticipating our 2021 tax rate will be a decrease And this would help that, but then that would go away. But we did anticipate a $350,000 reduction in the pilot amount. So the 338 is in line. So we're within our budget parameters. And really, we don't have to do anything unless the board doesn't agree, and then we would have to institute some legal proceedings. But if the board agrees with this, then we do nothing and Comida moves forward.
Okay.
So at this point, is the board okay for us to proceed as planned?
I want to ask Andy about the process. Isn't there a number specified in the pilot agreement itself that the district's a party to?
Yes, yeah, there is a number in the pilot, and that was based upon the assessed value back in 2014 when the pilot went into place. And that was based upon assessed value of about $90 million at the time. As we all know, the brick and mortar has fallen. So what the board has agreed to do, rather than fight to maintain that level, which we certainly have the legal right to do, is have the town do an assessment. What would based upon the assessed value, what would they pay in full taxes? And we've agreed over the years to lower that pilot amount to what they would be paying if they were fairly assessed, in order to help prevent it from basically going into bankruptcy, to give them the liquidity they need until they can rejuvenate it.
Right, I understand the rationale and process. I was just wondering if they're not looking for some kind of board consent to the change of the pilot, or does the pilot formula result in this reduction based solely on the town's reassessed value?
The formula doesn't, but it's Comida. My understanding is it's Comida who has the right to adjust the pilot, and we could try to intervene legally. Just like when the pilot is set, we have no say. Comida